From R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, this is The Retirement.
When you retire, if you want an exciting life, you need a boring investment strategy.
Matters.
If you enter into retirement without a plan for income, you're not retired, you're simply unemployed.
Podcast.
Hey, this is your host, Dale Smothers, and you're listening to the Retirement Matters Podcast. My hope is that you will find the information you need in every single show on how to do one of the three things: either saving more money more efficiently, planning better for your future where you can live in retirement worry-free, or my favorite, how you can live a happy and fulfilled life in this life you have been given. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending it listening to this episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast. On this week's episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast, we go into what it means to retire with both a pension and a 401k. There are a lot of people out there, specifically state workers, who are retiring with both pensions and 401ks. Now, this is a radio show that we recorded and put on the podcast. So for that reason, I'm focusing in on those in Kentucky and Tennessee. But at the same time, if you are retiring with both a pension and a 401k, or you're working towards retirement, you have a pension and a 401k, this is discussing the differences between those two and early on what you should be doing to set up your pension and your 401k correctly. Understanding that those are two different tools, we should not think that it's one or the other, but instead we should use both of them together to build the most optimal retirement plan. We love talking to you each and every week on this podcast, and we hope that you also enjoy listening to the shows. We hope that there's something that we have delivered to you in some of these shows to give you information that you can take back and apply to your retirement plan. And if you need any assistance in implementing those, you can give us a call, 270-600-PLAN. We would love it if you could like, share, subscribe to this podcast, or even send it to a friend. Let them know that we're here, because the more people we can reach, the more people we know will start to live happy in retirement. One of the easiest ways that you can help us reach more people is by giving us an honest rating and a review in the meeting notes. And of course, if you have anything that you'd like to address with us directly, contact at RDS Wealth is a good way to reach out to us. Contact at RDS Wealth. So with that out of the way, let's get to today's episode titled Retiring with Both a Pension and a 401k. Enjoy the show. Good morning to you, and happy Memorial Day weekend. I hope you're doing well and you are ready to start discussing all things retirement matters. Memorial Day weekend, the weekend that we remember those who have given their life, the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. Without those people, nothing we talk about today would even matter. A lot of what we talk about today may not even exist. The U.S. economy, the U.S. stock market, the U.S. dollar, those things that we all cherish in retirement, maybe not cherish, that's perhaps a strong word, but those things that are important to us, let's say, in retirement, things that we must have, things that we have an understanding of with the U.S. economy, they may not even exist if it hadn't been for those soldiers, men and women in the armed forces who for the last 200 plus years have laid their life down to make sure that we have what we know today as the United States of America. No matter how bad it gets out there, guys, I want you to remember we are still in the greatest country in the world. And our country that we live in, it's up to us to keep it. The republic that we have been handed, it's up to us to keep it. And no amount of infighting, no amount of backbiting, no amount of bickering back and forth is going to allow us to do this task. It's a very challenging task, no doubt. Times are dark, but in the darkest of times, the littlest of lights shine bright. And this is one thing that I truly believe, and that is that if we will shine our light around people and for people, it will make not only their world brighter, but it will begin to make our own brighter as well. Because as we help them light their light and they help others light their lights, the world turns from darkness into light. Now, ultimately, I know that we are here to talk about retirement planning, but every week, if you've ever heard this show before, you know this already. Every week we pause for positivity. And we could end this section of the show right now and say that was the pause for positivity. Thank you to all of those who have served, to all of the family members that still live and have laid down a sacrifice of your loved one. Thank you for that. We take pause this weekend to remember those sacrifices. If you have a flag, fly it accordingly. I think it's half-staff till noon, and at noon it raises. This is the symbolism of rising out of the ashes and continuing to work towards raising the standard of the United States of America. So that wasn't my pause for positivity, but it's a good start. What is my pause for positivity this week? My pause for positivity comes to us after a game that was played at our household just a couple of days ago. We sat down to play a game called Sequence. It's a family game, kind of a card game, kind of a board game. You sit down and you draw out of a deck of cards. You draw a hand of 5 or 6 cards, depending on how many people are playing. And the objective of this game is to make a row of 5 different chips, little chips. Think of like poker chips almost, but they're different. 5 chips in a row, which is called a sequence. You try to get a sequence, and on the board, you are placing chips on the spaces that correspond to the cards that you have in your hand. In other words, the card that you have in your hand, when you play that card, you then take a chip and you place that chip on the corresponding spot on the board that relates to your card. Now, unlike a normal game of Sequence, which is played with a normal deck of cards and a board with the corresponding cards on it, this is called Bible Sequence, which is played with a deck of Bible cards. They're Bible stories, little pictures of Bible stories. It's a really neat way even to maybe explain certain Bible stories whenever you see them. It's got a picture of the ark, and that, of course, is Noah and the ark. And then it may have a picture of an apple and a man and a woman and a snake. And, of course, that's Adam and Eve. And if you have that card, you lay it down and you put a chip on the board that corresponds to that card. Okay, now that we have the rules, the objective is to make 5 in a row chips. I get to playing this game. Matthew, Andrew, myself, we're playing this game. Whitney is actually setting off to the side, and she's watching. So Matthew, my youngest, and me, we team up, and we're playing Big Brother across the table. And we get started, and we start making our sequence, and we have maybe 2 or 3 in a row. And all of a sudden, Andrew would put one really close to ours, sometimes even putting one right in the way of a row of 2 or 3. We weren't really close to making a sequence per se, but we were 2 or 3 in, and Andrew didn't like it, so he put one down. He was playing his hand to make sure that we didn't win, rather than playing his hand to win himself. At the end of the game, Andrew lost the game. Matthew and myself, we high-fived, we were excited, and Whitney came over and she said, I want to point something out right here. Andrew, you could have won 2 or 3 times. I saw 2 or 3 specific times that you could have laid a card down and made a sequence, but instead you laid a card down to block what was about to become a sequence. You were playing defense instead of playing offense. And she said, I want to point that out to you because in life, you won't go anywhere if you're just playing to make sure no one else wins. Man, I thought that was incredible. It's got a lot to do with what we already discuss. Not only in retirement, but in life in general. If you're playing this game of life, if you're living life in a way to just worry about other people and what they're doing and make sure that you are not allowing them to surpass you, or making sure that you are doing everything you can to tear down what they're building, or you're gauging your own success based off of their success, you are living a less than optimal life. I am confident of it. We've talked about this before in the terms of running a race. One time, it was Andrew and I. I remember Andrew and I went out for a run, and this was when I would push him in a stroller. And he saw a gentleman running in the distance, and he said, Dad, let's catch that guy. So I made it my mission that we were going to overcome him. We began to run the race that he was running. We weren't even running a race. This is the thing. He didn't even know we were running a race. He was just out for a jog. We were just out for a jog. And now all of a sudden, every turn he made, we were making. Every time he would speed up, we would speed up. Every time he slowed down, we would still speed up in an attempt to catch him. Staying on track with where he was going became our mission. And by the end of our run, yes, we had overcome him and we had passed him, and Andrew was happy. But if you remember in that story, and this was some time back, we ended up not being able to go to the park and swing like he wanted to because we had ran a path that took us nowhere close to the park. When we had started that day, we said, okay, we're going to run this distance and we're going to stop and we're going to go to the park and then we're going to come home and be home for dinner. But what ended up turning into a race that no one was ever even planning kept us from doing what we had originally desired. We weren't running our own race. The same thing was happening in this game where Andrew had cards to win, but instead he was using those cards to tear down. And granted, he's 8 years old. He didn't realize this, but this is a life lesson, not just in the game, but it's a life lesson. If you live life in this manner, you will not win. I'm confident of it. And even when you win, like in our run, you may find that you're in a position that you never intended to be. You may find that you're nowhere close to what you have deemed to be true happiness, but instead you have chased after what others have built for themselves. You have kept up with the Joneses, but you realize that even the Joneses don't want to be where the Joneses are. This is life. And it was pretty neat that Whitney pointed that out to my 8-year-old boy, Andrew. He's an incredible young man, and he's learning these lessons as a young man, lessons that even as an old man, I'm 36 years old, and to him, I'm an old man. But at the end of the day, these lessons are life lessons that we have to continue to learn and continue to apply. Our pause for positivity this week comes to you with the challenge. Let's live life in a way that we are building what we desire as opposed to trying to see what others are doing and then trying to build bigger or better than them. Don't keep up with the Joneses is a simple way to say that. And that is my challenge to you. Find your purpose, follow that purpose, and build towards that purpose. All right, we're going to jump into a quick break. In 90 seconds, we're coming back. And in the spirit of EMS week, which was the 19th through the 25th, I want to spend some time and talk to state workers out there who are going to be retiring with a pension and a deferred compensation program. And I want to give you some understanding around what you actually have at your disposal and why you should be taking full advantage of these types of retirement plans. A lot of people do not have access to both of these, and I want you to be aware of exactly what you have at your disposal and how to use it properly. Don't go anywhere. 90 seconds coming back after this.
You're listening to the Retirement Matters Show with Dale Smothers. Dale is the founder and president of R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, serving the residents of Kentucky and Tennessee. We specialize in building retirement plans that allow you to walk away from the worry of running out of money. We are happy that you're listening in and hope you find value in this week's episode. If you'd like to listen to past episodes and find exclusive content and full-length interviews, search for the Retirement Matters podcast on the podcast platform of your choice, or visit us online at rdswealth.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter. That website again is rdswealth.com. Unfortunately, for many retirees, they're simply trading in the stress of work for the stress and worry about their financial future. At R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, our goal is to help build you a retirement plan that provides a smooth transition away from the time clock and into the time of your life. So even if you're still waiting on work retirement, we want to help you retire now from the worry of retirement funding. If you'd like to chat with a member of our team, you can do so absolutely free by calling 270-600-PLAN. That's 270-600-PLAN. Visit us online at rdswealth.com and be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter.
All right, welcome back to the show. Let's jump into where you need to be putting money if you are a worker, specifically even state workers, because this is something specific to a state worker where you're going to get a pension, maybe a city worker or county worker. You're going to get a pension and you're going to have a 401k. I want to talk to you specifically. Now, granted, some of this is the Kentucky retirement system. Some of this is the Tennessee retirement system. But, I don't want to get too specific because we have listeners from Tennessee, we have listeners from Kentucky, we have listeners who are in and out of hazardous duty. So I want to be very careful, and I want to make sure that the disclaimers are out there. Nothing I'm discussing here should be considered advice for your specific needs. But I had the opportunity to talk to the Taylor County EMS, and while there, we discussed retirement planning. There were some questions that were brought up that I thought would be beneficial to bring to the radio station. When we were there, we began to discuss the journey of retirement. And I began to, again, visualize this for them and with them as a climb up the mountain and down the mountain. Up the mountain is working towards retirement years. Climbing down the mountain is after retirement and in living through retirement years. Much of this show is built for those who are close to the top of the mountain or have already seen the top of the mountain and are now in retirement income years. We talk a lot about the specifics on that, but what if you're not quite to the top of the mountain? What if you're 5, 10, 15, 20, or even 30 years away from the top of the mountain? What advice do we need to understand, Dale? This advice is for anybody. First of all, we have to understand what good debt and bad debt is. We cannot take on bad debt. Bad debt is credit cards. Bad debt is anything with wheels, most anything with a motor. This is bad debt. We want to get out of that debt as quickly as possible. Good debt is real assets, things that appreciate in value, home, land, rental property, a farm, these things that we can hold tangible and that we know are appreciating in value. I'm not against you having a note against those things, especially if they're 3 or 4% and they're appreciating at 3 or 4% a year. It's essentially a wash. If you've got a 7 to 10% rate on those notes, then maybe we could consider paying those off over time. But they're certainly the last in the pecking order when it comes to arranging your debt. Credit card is number one. No matter what other debt you have, get rid of credit card debt. The second thing that we must understand is how much money we spend. We need to give ourselves a budget. We need to spend less than we make, and we need to know how much we make. Be surprised how many people, especially at this stage of the game, do not account for how much money they make. If you make $5,000 a month, you need to know that you're making $5,000 a month, and you need to know if you're spending $5,500 a month or $6,000 or $10,000 a month. You also need to know if you're spending $3,000 or $4,000. Where's the additional $1,000 going? So think of it like this. Imagine that we have a pie, and imagine that in this pie, it's a whole pie, we were able to cut off 10% and put it away for tomorrow. And then imagine that we took the other 10% and we gave to the church in tithe. And then imagine that we took the other 10% and we set it aside for a rainy day. This is not the tomorrow fund. This is a rainy day fund. This is the emergency money. We are going to continue to put that 10% into the emergency money until we have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. From there, we would love it if you could pick up that same 10% and begin to put it into the tomorrow fund, the retirement account. So you've got the retirement account, you've got the tithing or gifting account, and then you've got the saving account. Be aware that I'm not commingling our savings and our retirement account. In the Kentucky retirement system, this retirement account is called a Kentucky Deferred Comp. It works very similar to a 401k. You have a select amount of investments that you can pick from. Many of those investments are geared towards stock market. There is one, maybe two, that are geared towards more fixed accounts like CDs or short-term savings inside of the 401k, if I can use that word liberally. This Kentucky Deferred Comp is something you should be putting money into every single paycheck. You may say, Dale, no. They pay into my retirement. Yes, they do. but that is your Kentucky retirement pension, not your Kentucky deferred comp. Those are two different things, and we'll discuss that in just a minute. So now imagine that you have this pie and you've set 10 aside in your Kentucky deferred comp, and you've set 10 aside into the church, and you've set your other 10 aside into a rainy day fund. Let me back up for a minute. I don't demand that you put money in a church, but I do demand that you live with a life of generosity. And if we do this, I promise you, what you give out the front door will come in the back over time. So we've got, let's rephrase this, 10% going to your retirement account, 10% going to your generosity fund, and 10% for the rainy day fund. Eventually, that rainy day fund is going to have enough money in it because it doesn't rain every day. Although it has felt like it has rained every day in the month of June, it does not rain every day in life. So after our rainy day fund is filled, now we're putting that 10% that we would have set in rainy day fund into the retirement fund, and we have started to build what we would think of as a good retirement plan. Early on in retirement, it needs to look like this. You're living on the other 70%. The first 30% is accounted for. The other 70% is yours to spend. And if you can build your budget like this from the ground up, from day one, man, you have got a lot of things whipped. Because what's incredible about compound interest is over time, it's going to make that 10% that you put towards the retirement account, it's going to make that 10% of a pie turn into 50% of the pie. So every 10% you set aside, when you get ready to call on that again, it's going to be a half of a pie, or it could be a whole pie. Every piece of 10% you set aside is going to have grown to become something much larger, again, because of compound interest and time. This is what we're doing inside of the Kentucky Deferred Comp. Now, for the other 70%, I want you to understand you need to live to your means. Inflation makes things hard, especially for our EMS services. We don't make a lot of money, but it's all relative because someone who has a lot saves a lot. Someone who has little saves a little, but that little is going to make up. Again, it's 10%. It's all relative. That little bit is going to make up for what you need when it gets to retirement years, especially in the KRS system. Tier 1 and Tier 2 employees, and if you are in the system, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's based off of when you started. Tier 1, Tier 2 is going to have a pension. Tier 3 has a pension, but you have options inside of that pension. So there is a difference between the Kentucky Deferred Comp and the pension. And I want to make one more point here. We have to make sure that money doesn't become lazy. The money that we're saving, the 10%, we don't want it to be lazy. We don't want a rainy day fund to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. It's just unnecessary. We don't want a rainy day fund to have more than 6 months worth of expenses in it. So if you make $3,000 a month, after $18,000, you need to stop putting money in a rainy day fund. That's called lazy money. We're okay with that money being lazy if we need to be able to write a check on it. But after 6 months worth of expenses, it's very unlikely that we're going to need to call on that money anytime soon if we have built the retirement plan with both offense and defense. And this is where we begin to specifically talk about what it looks like to build a retirement plan, a true plan for retirement as a state worker. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take a 30-second break. We're going to reset. We're coming back with offense and defense inside of your retirement plan, and what that means exactly when we start building a retirement plan, holistic retirement plan within a Kentucky or Tennessee state retirement system. You won't want to miss it.
You're listening to the Retirement Matters Show with Dale Smothers. Dale is the founder and president of R.D. Smothers Wealth Management. We specialize in building retirement plans that allow you to walk away from the worry of running out of money. If you'd like to chat with a member of our team, you can do so absolutely free by calling 270-600-PLAN. That's 270-600-PLAN. Visit us online at rdswealth.com and be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter.
Welcome back to the show. Let's jump in. We have about 8 minutes here to wrap up. This goes out to state workers who are currently employed and want to know a little bit more about their system. In the spirit of EMS Week, which just wrapped up, I want to be telling you about the benefits that you have inside of your plan And a lot of confusion around why in the world we have a Kentucky deferred comp and why we have, let's say, a Kentucky retirement system, vice versa in Tennessee. Why do we have a Tennessee pension and or maybe a city pension or a county pension, and then also have access to some sort of 401k or a 403b or 401a? These types of plans are built specifically with you in mind. Now, granted, things have changed recently in legislation that make some benefits a little less as time goes on to be able to balance budgets. And I won't get into the politics of all of that. But you need to be aware that you have two things at your disposal on the offensive side, and that is a pension that pays you lifetime income and a Kentucky or a Tennessee deferred compensation program that behaves a lot like a 401k. These pensions are going to provide you guarantees. They're going to provide you what we would maybe call foundational income to build your retirement plan. When we are building a true retirement plan, we need to know how much money we're going to need in retirement. If you are working on, let's say, $10,000 a month and you're close to retirement, it's easy for us to see how your lifestyle matches up to your income. And maybe we need the same exact amount of money. Maybe we need a little more money, or maybe we need a little less money every month. When you're early in retirement, and you're making $3,000 to $5,000 or $6,000 a month, it may be difficult for you to really picture how much you need in retirement. So maybe from there we start looking at how much you know you can make. There should be ways to project what your pension will pay you at a certain time. The pension system is designed to pay you for life. Maybe even, if you select it correctly, paying your spouse for life. Both you and your spouse being able to take care of any kind of monthly needs with a large portion of this pension. Social Security is likely to be in your picture, depending on whether or not you've paid into Social Security. Some of our teachers, unfortunately, do not have that luxury. For that reason, maybe their pension's a little bit more inside of their retirement system. Now, we won't go into specifics because there are so many nuances that change from person to person. I will tell you this, if you need help with any of this, give us a call, 270-600-PLAN, especially if you're over the age of 59 and a half, because we need to be very serious about planning for those individuals. There's a little bit of wiggle room here when you're early on, but if you do it correctly early on, you can really set yourself up for success. And early on, not only do we need to talk about your offense, we need to talk about your defense. Here's what I mean by that. I want you to realize that if you're putting, say, $400 or $500 a month, remember 10% of your pie, if you're putting $400 or $500 a month away, I would rather you be looking at that $400 or $500 as a amount of money to build the plan than I would for you to say, Dale, put $400 or $500 a month towards my investments. Investments are not everything, especially early on. Investments are your offense. The way you invest your money would be considered offense. How you protect against losses is your defense. And those major defensive pieces are health insurance, disability insurance, and life insurance. These things have to be in place. Because what happens, Mr. 30-year-old or Mrs. 30-year-old, if you never make it to 65, and if for some reason at 35 or 40 you're flat of your back because you can't work and you have no income coming in, well, your lifestyle is drastically going to change. What happens 35 or 45 or 55-year-old even parent who has children at home that depend on your income, and you do not have life insurance and you're killed in an accident of some kind, or you just die because, well, life happens. This has drastically changed your financial perspective of the family. The financial perspective has changed on your kids, for your spouse. And it's all because we failed to put defense into place. Everyone wants to be concerned about offense, but it's time to get serious about defense if you're not yet at income phase. What happens if you cannot generate income for your family any longer? We need to make sure that we're protecting that. That's the defensive side. The offensive side, specifically with state workers, or any worker for this matter that has a pension and a 401k, be taking advantage of the 401k. And that 401k can likely be a little more aggressive because we have guarantees around some level of income with the pension. There was a question around, well, what am I doing putting money into an account if they're already paying for my pension? Well, it's because the pension is going to give you guaranteed lifetime income. The 401k or the deferred compensation plan that you're under is going to give you cash to spend on either supplementing that income and getting more every month, or it's going to be what we call the play check in your account. It's the travel budget. It's the let's take the grandchildren to Disney World budget. It could be the buy a new car, buy a new boat, join the country club, tour the world budget. That is what your 401k is. If income is supported with pensions and Social Security alone, the 401k becomes your play money. And you're going to wish 100 times over that you had more of it when you have retired and now every day is Saturday. There's no work to go to. It's just things to do. Trust me, you're going to wish you had more money no matter how well you've planned. At the same time, there is a way to plan towards retirement and know with confidence that you can walk away from work and still live the lifestyle you desire. If you need assistance with that, call us. We'd be happy to help. All right, guys, and just like that, time has come to an end. Man, it is insane how quick this time flies. I love talking to you. I'm glad that you enjoyed listening to the show. And I'll tell you, if there's anything that we are not discussing that you'd like a little more understanding on, give us a call, 270-600-PLAN. We'd be happy to address things on the radio as they come up. The market is doing pretty well. Had a couple of days there this past week that, were rocky, if you want to say it that way. But Memorial Day, let's enjoy the time. Let's enjoy our Monday off, and let's enjoy the sunshine that should be finally shining on Monday. Now, I would tell you to get out to the lake, but there's lakes everywhere with all the rain we've been having. So enjoy the time, whether that's with family, friends, or just in solitude. Let's remember those who have fallen, that have given us this freedom. And again, we thank you, those who have sacrificed family members for that said freedom. All right. I appreciate you tuning in each and every week, and I love talking to you. If it's not in person next time and it's on this show, until then, always remember, save money, plan well, and live happy. God bless.
Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and RD Smothers Wealth Management are not affiliated companies. Investing involves a risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. RD Smothers Wealth Management is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by RD Smothers Wealth Management.